Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew. Keith Johnson.
Are you enjoying this? Are you having fun?
Veronica Dashel.
Hi.
Vandy Beth Glenn.
Hey.
Elaine Sweatman.
Hi.
And Matt Sweatman.
Hello, Trekkers.
We have a full house tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, he said Trekkers. Oh, dude, we got to correct that.
We don't have time.
Oh, I didn't mean to get political.
I love it.
All right. And the news of the week is sort of what we're here to talk about tonight. But first, Keith,
Yay.
did you have any This Week in Trek this week?
Yeah, real quick. I'm going to run through fast. I thought these are very relevant given we're talking about the third season of a show that it's really, gosh, it was even titled The Next Generation. So I want to throw a couple of birthdays and a couple of events out of the way. First was on the 13th of February, 1928, was the birthday of one Gerald Fried.
Wow.
And Charles, you might know that name. And he's still with us.
Yeah. He's the only Star Trek composer from the original series who is still with us.
Yeah. And do y'all know the most famous song he composed from the original series?
It's got to be the fight scene from Amok Time.
That's it. Officially called The Ancient Battles / Second Kroika. And that is the famous dun, 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 dun. And man, I was reading that thing. That thing was evidently quoted by Eddie Murphy in one of his comedy movies, Futurama, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That thing is actually even more of a pop culture reference than I thought, which I thought was just awesome.
To great effect in The Cable Guy.
So is that where you got Krika from that one puppet show?
Yeah, that's from Star Trek.
Okay.
That whole show was from Star Trek, actually.
I love it. You can hear the lights just come on with Veronica. Another quick birthday, 1932, also important for the History and Foundations track. That's the birthday of Susan Oliver.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, who played Vina in The Cage. That you might know, Susan Oliver was she's a great actress. Another claim to fame is she was a pilot. She won what was it then called the Powder Puff contest. She was the fourth woman to fly solo across the Atlantic, and she was almost someone who flew around the world from the United States to Russia. But just as she got to Russia, they're like, "No, we ain't letting you in." So she had to end that. But she was rated on everything from prop planes up to giant passenger planes, whatever was the type of plane of the day. She's an incredibly good pilot. Something else I read that I found was very interesting was she asked Rick Berman to direct an episode of The Next Generation, and the official excuse came back was, "You don't have any visual effects background, so sorry, you can't do it." Which is interesting. Wow. Because Jonathan Frakes had no visual effects background when he started directing on The Next Generation.
Do you need visual effects to be a director?
You got to learn somewhere. It's very interesting. And also, and again, times have changed, but I remember that Gates McFadden was the only member of the TNG crew who had significant directorial experience, and she was one of those who was not allowed to direct. So it just shows times have changed. Yeah. One last quick birthday on 16th of February, 1957, one LeVar Burton.
Yay!
Who for me will forever be Kunta Kinte. For a whole generation of people will forever be the guy from Reading Rainbow. And for everybody will be, LaForge.
Yep.
Yes.
And then real quickly, a couple of quick anniversaries. The 16th of February, 1967 was the premiere of one episode called Space Seed.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I started to say, I don't even mean this a joke, but talk about something that planted seed for future stuff. So much has come from that, including the Sweatmans just even looked at the Augment arc in Enterprise, all coming from the episode. And the last thing, which I think is incredibly apropos, on the 18th of February, 1991, First Contact. Debuted in the United States.
Heard of it?
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
And welcome back to the TNG crew.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's This Week in Trek History.
Well, if you're listening on the audio podcast, we're going to take a quick break to promote a fellow ESO Network podcast show. But when we come back, we'll be talking about the premiere of Star Trek Picard Season 3. So stay right there. And if you're watching with us live, we're going to continue on and keep talking about it. Because tonight was the premiere of Star Trek Picard Season 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
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 Okay. Usually Al gives me a woo-woo, but he's not here today.
His energy, yes. He's in La La Land right now.
Right.
I don't know. I can't do his voice.
Yeah, I mean, big premiere. I mean, it's not the first time that they've brought the next gen crew back in some capacity. We've had that for a few years now on Picard, but it's being done in a different way this time around. And some people think that's good, some people think that's bad. But I think we're dive in with spoilers for Star Trek Picard season 3, The Next Generation. Anyone wanted to jump out with a quick opinion?
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Vandy Beth does not seem like
Uh-oh.
a fan.
Oh my.
How about you, Matt?
Well, I've been skeptical, and I've heard opinions all over the spectrum on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it.
Okay.
Enthusiastically, I loved it.
All right, Elaine.
I loved it too, but it does not take much to amuse me, and so it's got to be really bad for me to go no. So yeah,
That's not a bad thing.
yeah.
What about you, Keith?
I really enjoyed it. I found a couple of things, which we'll get into in detail, a little cliche. The whole "we got to steal a ship" kind of thing was a little cliche. It reminded me way too much of The Search for Spock. And I literally don't know where they picked up Captain Shaw. Was that from like central casting? But I enjoyed it. The look somehow looks better. And I already like it better than the first 2 seasons of Picard.
How about you, Veronica?
Me?
Yeah.
I liked it. I liked it a lot. Like Keith said, better than the first 2 seasons of Picard. So far, not quite as good as the first episode of Lower Decks.
Okay.
So, I mean,
yeah. Vandy Beth, you sound like you were about to say something else when I started saying that.
Yeah.
So were you gonna build upon your
This episode was a Jenga tower of cliches, and it's just a question of when they stack the last possible one and the whole thing just comes crashing down. There's so much I disliked about this episode, and I really wanted to like it.
So too many callbacks and stuff, like too much felt familiar.
Too many cliches, like having to steal a ship, which makes no sense whatsoever. They didn't have any troubles hiring a civilian ship in season 1.
Right.
We're not given any real reason why they couldn't do the same thing.
Right.
Again, the whole conspiracy storyline, the captain being a jerk, Captain Shaw. I mean, yeah, it was. I did not enjoy this episode at all.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was fun to watch, but I agree with you about the cliches. My first impression was that it was fun, but it felt fan filmy.
You posted that too, right?
Yeah, that was the only thing I posted this morning because I watched it at 4 a.m. and I didn't want to start giving out too many opinions when everyone was getting up for work and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's their plan to steal to hijack the Titan or to borrow the Titan was silly. I mean, like a retired admiral, you wouldn't expect to walk onto an aircraft carrier and say, "Hey, set a course for Japan." Wouldn't that be fun? Because they're just like, "No, I've got actual orders from my superior officers." This is not how Starfleet works.
Besides which, in Crusher's message, she said very explicitly, "Do not trust Starfleet." And then the first thing they do is go to a Starfleet ship.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. They could have found some kind of. I think they could have, maybe because of the speed, was it the essence thing? Maybe they could have. Because it's a state of the art. What was a Neo Constitution class, and they were going warp 9.99. By the way, I really hate this new warp scale. I wish they'd go back to the old school warp scale, where this be like warp 13, like in and all good things. Maybe that's. But I agree with you, Vandy Beth. I'm thinking you guys can find a mercenary ship somewhere because. This doesn't make sense. And like you said, Charles, they come on board. Hey, I'm an admiral retired, and I'm a captain without a ship. You're right. Just change course, can you? And we're not going to tell you what this is all about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Besides which, they got they apparently got to the Rhyton system.
Yes.
They got to the Rhyton system, which is on the edge of the Federation border, apparently in the space of one night, because Captain Shaw slept through the whole thing.
He's a heavy sleeper. he needs his sleep.
Okay, but it was established in Voyager and in many other places that if it takes 75 years to come back from the Delta Quadrant, then it wouldn't be possible for them to get to the Federation border that quickly. And it's another example of many in the franchise where ships are always able to move at the speed the plot requires them to, no matter what. No matter what has been established previously.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think what they're going to kind of claim is that you're playing around, because the way that warp scale works is as you add those stupid nines on, logarithm goes up. So so probably
exponentially.
Thank you.
I was waiting for Keith to substitute another word. Yes.
I used to be able to say this all the time, but I still agree with you, Vandy Beth, because even in Deep Space Nine, it took several weeks to get from Earth to Deep Space Nine, and that was not the frontier. And even in Voyager, where they first, in that great episode Timeless, the one where Ensign Kim has to go back in time to stop the destruction of Voyager because they were using the quantum slipstream. Even then, they said they were at the outer edge of Federation space, and I think it was going to take another year to get to Earth, and that was considered the outer edge of Federation space. So I agree, that was a little bit of a plot device. Hey, we got a comment coming in.
Yeah, comment from Facebook user, and sorry, Facebook user is not showing your name, so feel free to let us know who you are. That says, I agree with Vandy. I couldn't understand why they had to be duplicitous in getting a ship, and it was a bit weird that Dr. Crusher said no Starfleet, and they still went to Starfleet when they could have hired a ship. It seemed like an excuse to get 7 in there. Yeah, to get 7 in there and to set it on a Starfleet ship. Yeah. But not with Starfleet backup. It's just an excuse for Picard and Riker to be butch and sundancing across the galaxy.
and I feel like the reason that she said no Starfleet is because whoever is tracking them can track Starfleet, and therefore they led them right to them.
Could be. I mean, they'd already found them. They, at the beginning of the episode before she sent that. But yeah, I mean, we don't know what's going on. But yeah, I thought that was pretty contrived, but I did enjoy just seeing Picard and Riker on an adventure together, even if it was kind of a silly adventure.
Yeah.
Maybe the excuse for why they still had to get a Starfleet ship versus a private one was that they couldn't get the speed to get there in time. They mentioned 9.999. It's very conceivable that on the scale that no private ship could come anywhere near that speed. So that might be the excuse why they still choose a Starfleet ship.
Could be. I mean,
that's good. Sorry, Charles. Go ahead.
That's as good a reason as any. Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, they shouldn't have scrubbed those old Spore Drive records.
Right.
well, never mind that. Apparently, in Prodigy, which is set some 20 years earlier, they've already developed some sort of super high speed alternative to warp drive because they can get to the Delta Quadrant very quickly, but they don't make any mention of that. So that's just that's just a fan theory.
Well, like the Spore Drive, they always forget these technologies the next series anyway. That's always back to warp drive.
Right.
Yeah. Well, in Prodigy, Janeway's ship is using quantum slipstream, which is a technology they couldn't make work in Voyager. And that technology lets you go, my goodness, thousands of light years, and it looks like hours. So I don't know. Maybe so. Maybe that's what they're using. Don't know.
Yeah. Again, now, I mean, her ship is pretty unique looking too. So it could be not every ship's going to have that. So, I mean, we don't know. There's a good, like, they're a little vague on when this is set, but around 17, 18 years probably from Prodigy to Picard season 3. So I don't know. I mean, I thought that the everything was well acted. I enjoy, like I said, seeing Picard and Riker together. With Shaw, I was of two minds about Shaw. I liked the fact that he was just like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't have orders to do that. That part of his character I liked. I didn't like that he's making 7 of 9 go around calling herself Annika Hansen. She just doesn't seem like she wants to. So that part of his character I don't care for.
Yeah,
and putting an admiral,
like going with their their preferred name seems like a thing you would do on a Star Trek TV show, and not their dead name, for lack of a better word.
Sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
also,
that's a good name.
he
A
was
good
Shaw.
word.
Shaw was incredibly and unnecessarily rude to them at dinner, which made no sense to me. And then he literally put them in bunk beds, as it were.
Right.
So that was where I'm like, what is that all about? I mean, like you said, Charles, it's okay if he's more of a by the book guy. I mean, everything about Star Trek, I think it's so funny, is the heroes we always follow are considered cowboys by everybody else. So Shaw saying, "Oh no, you're not bringing that disorder to my ship." Like you said, I'm okay with that. But just him being so rude, and him even making a
starting
comment.
dinner before they got there.
Yeah, I mean, what was that
Yeah.
about? And then that horrible comment to Annika about your loyalty is not to another former Borg. I mean, good God.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Mhm.
Yeah, it felt like between the name change with 7 of 9 and the mention of Picard, where he sort of threw in there your former Borg.
Mhm.
I think they're trying to establish a excessive Borg hatred in his character right off the bat.
Boy,
Well, yeah.
success.
Yeah.
He's worse than Lorca.
Yeah, that's, I mean, especially for having a former Borg first officer, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I like the fact that he was just like, no, I'm not, because you said so, going to fly to the edge of the Federation because it's cool. But the rest of his character, yeah, he's I mean, he's deliberately a jerk.
Yeah.
And none of the crew members looked like they really were enjoying being on that ship. Like they just,
Well, they can't see what they're doing.
well, but like the way they were, like
He's
they,
obviously from the mirror universe because he keeps them in the dark.
There you go. Go ahead, Elaine.
but like they just, everybody was very stiff. Like there didn't seem to be any friendship or camaraderie or anything like that. It was just like robotic almost, like beep 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 beep, we're ready to go. And I think that because of the captain, the way he wants everything to be perfect, kind of thing.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of makes you appreciate Jellicoe better, huh, folks?
No.
Well, I felt they were setting it up for a mutiny, and I thought that crew was ready to mutiny. I thought they're like,
Yeah.
yes, we are going to mutiny against Captain Shaw. You don't have to tell us. Ask
We're
us
gonna
twice.
fall under. We'll fall under 7, and we're caller 7 too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
All
yeah, Elaine, I think you made a very good point about the crew and how the morale seemed. And my joke about Jellicoe aside, I think it's funny because I could see on a Jellicoe run ship, I could see a crew that does have a camaraderie. He's a little strict and so forth, but he's not Shaw type strict.
Mhm.
I think Jellicoe's the kind, as long as he thinks he gets the job done, he's cool. This guy, yeah, I could see people kind of hating going to work every day for him.
Yeah.
Real quick, forgive me, Charles, but I had a question because I wrote down the Titan was beautiful inside, but a little boxy outside. What did y'all think about the ship and how it looked?
Well, it's deliberately retro.
Yeah.
Before I get too much into that, I want to grab a comment though from Michael Phillips that said the captain was
Hey,
the most
Michael.
uptight in Star Trek history.
Well, he's got slight competition, and I wondered, was he supposed to be the reincarnation of the captain of the Reliant in the Search for Spock? The one who literally had a riding crop and was
No, that
battling-
was the Excelsior captain from Star
Excelsior.
Trek.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Yes,
get that
was
wrong.
Captain Styles.
Captain Styles, who at the time was famous on Hill Street Blues as another uptight character, who literally had a riding crop and was babbling about beating the Enterprise's record. Shaw would give him a run for your money, but stick up as you know what, Captain.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Titan is deliberately retro. They're a little vague on whether this is Riker's Titan or whether he commanded 2 Titans. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Because they acted as if he is the he was captain of the Titan.
Right.
But then they mentioned that it's been recently refitted. He made a comment about a new car smell, but then Captain Shaw mentioned that he took over essentially from Riker, that Riker used to be the commander of this ship.
Right.
And so I'm not sure if this is supposed to be the ship like Riker's original Titan, or if Riker commanded 2 Titans, or if they're doing that thing that new Star Trek has done a few times, which is assume that when a ship is refit, it gets an A and becomes a different ship. Because they've done that a few times also.
Good
So I'm not sure.
I thought it looked good. I thought I noted the secondary hull looked a little small compared to those giant nacelles, which kind of sort of reminds me of Abrams versus Enterprise and how they did it. So the secondary hull looked a little boxy and small to me, but I love the primary hull. And inside actually looks really beautiful for all the computer stuff. I thought it was gorgeous inside.
Yeah.
And I love that view screen.
It's the same set as the Stargazer. They may have added sets to it, but essentially it's a Stargazer.
Really nice. And somebody made a comment, was it Veronica or Elaine earlier, and I made it in my notes, which is, why are all the modern Federation vessels using low lights on the bridge? I mean, it's so dark in there. What is up with that?
Right.
Well, to me, it reminded me a little bit of like Discoveries. Because in Discovery, it's dark like that on the Discovery Bridge. And so I was like, oh, it kind of reminds me of Discovery, even though that is not the same time frame.
Sure.
I don't know where. Yeah. I don't know my timeline very well yet. So.
Yeah, if you look at all the other ships, it's always well lit on the bridge in the old days.
Well, in the Navy, they keep the bridge dark so you can see it, other contacts at sea in the dark, but that wouldn't really apply in a starship.
Yeah, it's as good an excuse as any. I mean, I thought that it seemed brighter than it seemed in some of the trailers. I was screen capping some of the trailers and like brightening them up so I could see what was going on and posting them on Facebook and stuff. But it's a little bit brighter, but yeah, it seemed like it's just the mood they're going for. And it seems like it's brighter behind them all the time than it is where they're standing. Like there's bright stuff in the background, and we just happen to be always in the next room over where the lights are off.
Yeah.
So what do we think of Beverly? Beverly led off this adventure.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Beverly straight up murdered somebody, dude. Seriously?
Two of them.
He seemed like the kind of guy who has it coming.
So, was it just me, or did those guys seem like the Breen?
Well,
did it remind them, because like the noises they were making and the way that their clothes and then the mask thing, it reminded me of the Breen.
Okay, that's one theory.
I didn't.
So those were masks, right? Those were masks, not their actual natural faces.
We don't know that.
Yeah,
he did say that they come with different faces when they come back. Every time they find them and hunt them down. So apparently, it is a adversary that can take on different faces of different species. It's
maybe they're xenomorphs.
Could be.
Yeah,
could be. That'd be a twist. They did that on Strange New Worlds though, so it's not that unusual.
Right. I thought it was cool. I thought Beverly was cool. I was surprised to see her just casually stand over that dude and blow him away. And later on, Riker even said, "Doesn't seem like Beverly."
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
When I said it seemed like it was like Alien, like she was Ripley, just with her gun and hunting down whatever's on her ship. I was like, wow,
I mean, it was a clear case of self-defense, and we've seen her do that before.
Yeah. I mean, she was one of the people picked for that like super secret away mission when Jellicoe took over.
That's true. Yeah, they sent her on the commando mission.
Yeah. Well, she not only was defending herself, she not only had them set to kill, she had them set to completely disintegrate whatever she shot. And that struck me as a little severe. I'm like, okay, she's well past the point to where she thinks she can stun them and capture them to defend, which you would think it would have taken a lot to get to the point to where she was instantly disintegrating them.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's a big jump for Crusher from the Crusher that we knew from the series, who was more, I'm the doctor, and like, even though we're in a terrorist attack, I need to help these people and that sort of thing, to like Stone Cold Killer, vaporizing people,
Right.
and cocking her phaser rifle like a shotgun.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense that you would need to cock or pump a phaser rifle, but it did look and sound cool. Right. It seems apropos to make a note at this point that the name of Crusher's ship was Helios, which is the Greek god of mercy.
Oh,
okay.
Thank you.
And yet Beverly showed none.
That's right. She's all out of Helios. Her ship was very small. It seemed like the shuttle was almost the size of her ship, or not almost the size, but it was a fourth the size of her ship. So it seemed like she's on a little few person craft.
Yeah.
Was it being run by two people? Was there evidence there was more of a crew than them two? I mean, it seemed like Riker was looking for more life forms on board the ship when he scanned it, possibly.
Yeah. As of when we caught up with them, there seemed to be the two people. Now, I guess a bulkhead could open and 3 other people jump out. We don't know that yet. But, I mean, it may have had a larger crew at one point, and now Beverly and her son are the only people left.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know how the heck he has a British accent.
Wow, we are thinking so much alike. I wrote, man, there are so many people who end up like British kids in these shows.
The British accent is clearly meant to imply that he's Picard's son.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
As we all know, accents are genetic.
Shinzon had one.
Oh God.
Exactly. Any child that Picard fathers is going to have a British accent.
That's how you know Jason Vigo wasn't really his son. The guy sounded American.
Yeah. I was stunned to hear Picard say that he hadn't spoken to Beverly in 2 solid decades.
Mm-hmm.
And what the heck happened? Because then they said she cut herself off from everyone. Picard, Riker, Geordi, everyone. So there's a huge mystery. I thought she would have been captaining a medical ship all these last 20 years or something like that. So I don't know what the heck is going on. And I think it's very interesting that they are building a mystery around Beverly Crusher's character.
Well, the Helios, thank you, Vandy Beth, may well be a medical ship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, it has the right name for one, and Beverly seems to be in command. We don't know that for a fact, I don't think. But something's going on, either having to do with the fact that she was having a son or unrelated to that sort of caused her to cut everyone off for 20 years.
Yeah.
Do we know that the Helios is a Starfleet ship, though?
It looks like one. I guess we don't know that for sure. It has. I was trying to think if we saw LCARs and things. I mean, the design of the ship is clearly Starfleet. Whether it's currently an operation Starfleet ship, I don't know.
Did you notice when they first introduced Beverly, when they were panning across the consoles and stuff, there was a case that had Jack Crusher's name on it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And you saw like a medical tricorder and a couple other things real quick, and Jean-Luc's log up. I do have a weird question, which is, I know that she has to be very secretive, but if you're really in dire straits, are you gonna send a message only to someone's 20-year-old comm badge and hoping they like still have it around and it's still working and turned on? And I mean, couldn't she send it to his phone?
Yeah, that bugged the heck out of me too. I mean, why would the old comm badge even still work? I mean, I upgraded to an iPhone 13 last year. I don't still get calls to my iPhone 6.
and we saw in the first season that he's got a whole stockpile of his old belongings at Starfleet in the basement somewhere. So I mean, you're lucky he didn't open that thing up and be like, "Oh, I had a missed call 3 years ago from Beverly. I wonder what she wanted."
I was just surprised he could hear it in the first place. I mean, he's an elderly man. He still has perfect hearing, because I couldn't hear it. I know it was beeping because the closed captioning told me it was beeping, but it wasn't until he actually had it in his hand that I could hear it. I was like, how did he?
Well, he looks like an old man, but he has a synthetic body.
True. It could be too.
Yeah.
I mean, he spent so many years. Like if someone else's iPhone will go off in a grocery store, and I'll, because I'm so accustomed to listening for it. We had a comment real quick from Michael Phillips saying, "I really wish they'd stop the Star Wars style pulse weapons and go back to the classic beams. I don't understand why they ever switched. Are the special effects cheaper or something?"
Michael Phillips, silent clap.
Because it looks.
Thank you for saying that. I do not want to be the guy who keeps complaining about the Abrams versus Fusion into Trek, because it bugs me too. But thank you for saying it, so I didn't have to.
Yeah, I also prefer the beams. Although I mean, the Defiant had pulse phasers, and they had like squirt phasers in the Star Trek movies. So there's some precedence in the Star Trek universe for them. But yeah, I also miss the beams. I like the beams.
The beams seem more scientific to me,
especially when they dodge them.
Yeah, which is great. I know. What reaction time, right?
It seems like you'd never miss someone with that thing. You just wave it around like a flashlight until you got
them. Ew.
I thought there was. I thought that there was. I've been on record as saying I didn't like the first 2 seasons
Right.
of Picard, but Patrick Stewart is a master actor, and even if I hadn't known a lot about what had come before, the first thing I noted was you could feel and see Picard's spirit was lighter as soon as the show kicked off, and not just because he actually kissed Laris and stuff. He was completely different. He wasn't bowed and beaten like he was in season 2 and even season 1. And I loved seeing that about him.
Yeah. And I mean, well, mentioning Laris, let's touch on Laris real quick. I was glad that she actually was there because they spent so much of season 2. That's sort of a big part of his character arc was from beginning to end asking out Laris. And then we hadn't heard much about whether she was going to be in this season or not. And Beverly was coming back, and I was like, "What?" No. But Laris was actually there. They seemed to be in some kind of a relationship.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like his relationship with Laris in particular, and his friendship with Romulans generally, because it feels to me like an homage to Spock and to Picard's relationship with Spock. Yeah, because justice and reunification with the Romulans was very important to Spock.
That's true. Yeah. And it's 3 seasons in a row now where I thought Laris should have gone on this adventure. How come Laris isn't coming? They never take Laris along.
Yeah.
You mean unless you count that still inexplicable Laris clone from last season who was the Watcher or whatever?
That's
right.
Whatever you call it. Yeah.
Maybe one of those guys will pull their mask off and he'll be a Laris clone. Could be.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? Is Laris going to show back up? Are we seeing the last of Laris for a while?
I don't think we'll see her again, except maybe at the end. They've basically written her out.
Right.
Yeah.
I really hope so. Okay, if I'm traveling around the galaxy getting in danger, I think I'd want a former Tal Shiar member with me. We've already seen what she can do at the drop of a hat.
I don't understand why he didn't bring her along in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
She's got skills that'll be useful in a mission like this.
Absolutely.
It did sound like she had her own diplomatic mission to do.
Yeah, she's got her own thing going on. But I guarantee that, Crusher Jr. would not have got the jump on her like he did Riker.
No.
Yeah, but Riker got back at him, which seemed a little, as old as they were describing him and knee problems and all, that he was able to. But I also got the feeling that this Crusher's son was not very well trained in those kind of combat arts. So maybe that was the factor that gave Riker the advantage there.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Well, I'm still kind of hung on the Crusher Jr. thing. I mean, we'll first off, do we know his name? I mean, what are the odds that his name is Jack? Do we feel like Jack is a pretty strong candidate for his name?
Well,
because they had the name Jack in the on the luggage in the beginning, so maybe his name is Jack.
Yeah.
That would explain that better, because I thought it was very weird to take your dead ex-husband stuff on you on your mission.
She never throws anything away. That case is still good.
Well, now that you're mentioning Crusher kids, how come Wesley doesn't sense her distress and just pop in and then take her through time and space with him? Can he not do that? Is that against the law?
That's a good point.
I mean, he's a traveler, right?
Come on, Wesley.
But they're not omnipotent. There's limits to their power, so I don't think they want to portray him as being able to be all-knowing, all-seeing everything that goes on everywhere. I don't think that's quite how they describe him.
So no Deus Ex Machina in this case, huh? But I would think he'd sense his mom's distress, because the travelers sense Wesley's distress when Beverly got trapped in that warp bubble.
Mm. Yeah. Well, maybe he's already seen the end of the season, so he knows that she's going to be okay.
Oh, yeah. He lives outside of time and space.
Right. So is there anybody who doesn't think that her son is Picard's son? Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Actually, honestly, that didn't cross my mind, but now you mentioned it because Picard said something. It really didn't. But then No, it honestly didn't. But now that you're mentioning it, he did say something really weird happened 20 years ago. It's like she just stopped talking to him, so that would kind of follow through. I hope that's not the case. I personally hate the plot when a woman hides a child from the father. That drives me up. Long story short, I'm adopted and I have a really complicated past. I'm not going to go too deep in here, but I'm the product of an affair. Let's just say like this. And I knew my story. And I can't stand it when they have this plot line where a woman doesn't tell a man that he has a child. Now, if they want to argue about who raises the child, blah, 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 but to just keep it secret drives me crazy. I hope Beverly is not doing that. But now that you put it in my head, I can't see any other thing. And like Vandy Beth said, he didn't hear the accent. So
Right.
Well,
There'll be a
hadn't-
twist, and Worf will be the dad. No one will
Oh,
see
gosh.
it coming.
I hadn't put that together, but Matt said it, and I was like, oh, okay, that would make sense because 20
Thank you,
years ago
Elaine.
she disappeared, and now there's a baby, a grown baby.
Now there's a
but,
19-year-old kid.
but
Well-
Shatner had the same thing happen to him, so it wouldn't be the first time.
Well,
That's true.
they have established Worf in this new season, by the way. We haven't seen him yet, but he's obviously Raffi's handler.
Yeah, that seemed obvious to me just by the dialogue. I mean, I've seen speculation online that it's lore, like some kind of twist in lore is the handler for some reason. But Worf seemed, "You're a warrior. This is a war. Request denied." Like it
Right.
seems like Worf dialogue.
Oh,
I'm
I didn't
just
catch
missing
that.
every clue
I didn't
today.
either.
Me either. What the heck?
Well, you just watched it.
Yeah, I'm missing all this stuff. You
Yeah,
guys
I
are
missed
fun.
that one too. Yeah,
But
Okay,
I think-
thank you.
I
but-
think
I
it
was also thinking it was like the Borg collective people.
Okay, that's outside chance, but maybe.
I
Probably
think
not because they're done with that. But
yeah, they're done with the Borg.
Right.
Yeah, not just I thought it was some sort of like disguise for the voice, but I was thrown off with how high pitched and feminine it was. It was like denied, and so I don't picture Worf with that
What?
kind of voice. You know,
I think that was just the computer reading the text. though.
True, but the computer, she got it set. Whoever calibrated the computer,
she
like,
doesn't have it on Michael Dorn's voice.
I know, but that's
Yeah,
why
he
it
hasn't
didn't cross
recorded
my
one
mind.
yet.
No.
All right.
So now that you guys have brought the possibility of Worf, which I didn't even think about. I'm interested to see how he's going to be integrated into the plot. And Geordi, who's off running the Fleet Museum, I want to see how they're going to bring him into the plot because I expected Geordi to be doing like either writing a novel like he was in All Good Things or running the Daystrom Institute or some engineering school. But he's running a museum, which is interesting.
Oh, well, I'll go ahead and make a prediction on the record here tonight.
What's that?
Sydney LaForge is going to call her dad.
Uh,
And she's going to say,
Yeah.
"Listen, Dad, I'm not supposed to be telling you this, but Picard and Riker were just here. I think something big is up. You better come down here." And then it'll be Geordi who brings the band back together, and then he won't have trouble getting a ship, and he'll fly on out to the Righton system.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
could
they'll-
be, yeah.
They'll all try to meet up at Deep Space 4 until somebody corrects Picard again, and they get it at Deep Space 11.
Or they'll go to Starbase 80 instead.
No.
All right. We had a comment from Michael Phillips. I immediately intuited that it was Dr. Crusher's son. I didn't understand why Picard was confused. It's not like she can give birth only once. I'd prefer if he wasn't Picard's son. There are a lot of men in the universe, after all. Candles, too. So it's a lot of possibilities.
You beat me to that one.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, what do we think of Sydney LaForge?
there wasn't much to her.
No opinions?
Yeah, they're
Crash LaForge, they call her.
she's
Yeah.
just kind of there.
To be determined.
There's a lot of references to the Star Trek movie series in this, with Damora Sulu and David Marcus and
Mhm.
etc. You know,
The font
Um,
of In the 25th Century at the first of the
Right.
episode was right out of the Wrath
Right.
of Khan. And
Right.
the music was very, they weren't using the Jerry Goldsmith theme. They were going for very much James Horner type music from Star Treks 2 and 3.
There were definitely some music cues that were right out of Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And then
The ch-
for the end credits, they lifted the First Contact theme.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I thought all that was nice. It was as always, which has never been a complaint with these shows, a gorgeous looking and sounding show. Like, no doubt about it. I mean, it just looks beautiful on my television. I love the music. I gotta be honest, when I heard the Star Trek theme, I smiled. And how can I not? For 50 years, I've been watching this thing. As soon as I dun, 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 I was like, oh, Star Trek.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first live action episode we've had since 2005 with an on-screen title.
Oh,
because
maybe that's
the title of the episode up the top instead of an intro sequence, which seemed like it's at the end now, or at least it was for this episode. And it was just part one, The Next Generation. But we haven't got on-screen titles throughout the new Star Trek shows, except for on animation.
Yeah.
And the theme song didn't have lyrics either.
That's true.
Well,
not that we know of.
Elaine and I start expecting to hear "It's been a long road" every time they cut the teaser of any Star Trek show now.
You guys have finished Enterprise now, right?
We just did, yes.
Yeah.
Last night.
Okay, I feel a show coming up.
So that's who has hurt you, Sweatmans.
I made a note when they first showed Rafi, and this is a very personal opinion. I didn't like Rafi in seasons 1 or 2, and oops, sorry, y'all. I'm a man. My wife is a Black woman, and the first time I saw Rafi, I had a thought, and then my wife saw it. And I didn't make a comment, and her first thought was, "I'm a little upset that a Black woman in the 24th century is introduced as smoking weed and drinking all the time and living in a trailer in the desert and supposedly utopian future." So we have both struggled with Rafi, and she's a great actress. We've kind of struggled with that. It's a personal thing. Even somebody younger than me may not have this problem. I do not speak for all Black people, but the angry Black woman is kind of an irritating stereotype for me. So when they first introduced Rafi, I wrote in my notes, "Lord, please let Rafi be undercover." And it turns out she's undercover. Now I'm kind of cool because it looked like she's been smoking something while she's been undercover. But what I found was so interesting is context is king, because Rafi being undercover like this and struggling with whatever is a much more palatable character for me than the Rafi it was introduced in season 1, who was basically smoking weed and drinking because she was pissed off. Picard let her down and she got kicked out of the service. And so I actually like that fact that she's been undercover for months and she's feeling lost. I could deal with her better this way. And even just the time they showed her, it just showed me she's a really good actress. And somehow maybe it's my prejudices, but as I was able to drop my filters and how I didn't like what Rafi represented, I much more appreciated the actress's performance today. And I actually found myself looking forward to her going forward, which I was surprised to find.
Yeah. And yeah, I thought that was a really good twist on her character. To make use of the backstory they've given her so far, but make her a functional member of Starfleet and, actually doing something on the show. But and they said I was listening to Michael Dorn on the Shuttle Pod podcast, and he was saying that he has a lot of material with Michelle Hurd. So I'm looking forward to seeing those two together,
Wow, can you see Worf, Seven, and Rafi all in a scene together? That could be powerful. Those are the powerful actors there.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Vandy Beth, you had mentioned in Facebook discussions that you weren't feeling Seven in Starfleet. You kind of preferred her as a Ranger. Did watching the show today change that at all?
No. I mean, I believe what I said was I think every Star Trek show is essentially military science fiction, and they always present this image that Starfleet is the ne plus ultra of being a Federation citizen. Like, everybody wants to be in Starfleet, and if you don't want to be in Starfleet, why don't you want to be in Starfleet? It's
right. What else is there?
Yeah, exactly. It's like people from San Francisco talking about San Francisco. And I mean, Seven in the first 2 seasons seemed to have built a really nice life for herself, and it was only in the second season where they started establishing out of nowhere that she'd always had this longing to join Starfleet, and it just doesn't make any sense. And it makes even less sense that she would apparently be going in as a commander and being slotted into the first officer role when she's never even served as in any sort of command capacity before.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Within Starfleet, anyway.
Yeah, it's a reboot of her character, and they started at the end of season 2 when Picard said, "Now you're in command." Like, what? You not even do that. But yeah, it's I didn't think it seemed like a natural progression for her character at all from what we saw in the first 2 seasons.
No.
Someone mentioned earlier, theorized that maybe Shaw hates Borg. I wonder if back at the home office they're like, okay, we got this Borg. Who do we want to put her under? Yeah, put her under Shaw. He'll keep her alive. He hates their people.
Could be.
Well, and Seven does look miserable in her role on the ship, and she pretty much says she was when in that one scene.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, who wouldn't be?
Now it would have made so much more sense to me if Riker and Picard had said, "Okay, we need to avoid Starfleet and we need to get a ship." If they had then gone to Seven as a Fenris Ranger and convinced her to lend them a ship or even give her come along with her own ship with them to where they needed to go. And then that way they would have avoided Starfleet, which they were supposed to be doing. And it would still bring Seven back into the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I mean, especially with La Sirena still kicking around.
Yeah.
Like you've got a set already for a civilian ship. I mean, jump on La Sirena and fly to the edge of the galaxy. Or if they want to keep with Picard and Riker sort of goofballing around the galaxy, have them booking a passenger flight and having to ride coach out to the edge of the galaxy.
I'm thinking of Avenue 5 now.
Right.
Well, I think they showed us that the ship Raffi is using is La Sirena.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
You've got it available if they wanted a civilian ship, but I think they're doing jumping jacks to get back onto a Starfleet ship and one that looks uncharacteristically like the TOS movie era.
Right.
Starfleet went very retro.
I wrote in my notes maybe one reason they needed a fast ship because Picard spent like an evening sipping wine with Laris discussing if he should go rescue Beverly or not. And I'm like, dude, as soon as you got the message, shouldn't you run out the door? They were sitting there in the dark and they were just sitting there and they were talking. Blah, blah, blah. Dude, seriously, leave. I wrote my notes, leave. What's there to discuss?
Then he had to go have a night with Riker in the bar discussing all of that.
Well,
we found out Riker and Deanna aren't together anymore or something. Something's up with them. But yes.
Yeah. What was that comment about? That was weird.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, it seems like they're having some marriage problems. Were you trying to get your theory in there?
Yes.
Go ahead with your theory.
So I have 2 things. So I'm going to get to my theory second.
Okay.
First, I want little tiny fat starships that go in my drink and make it cold. Like those little cube things that they have where you
Like the metal ice cubes?
Yes. And I want my little fat Enterprise to go in my cup.
It's the Galaxy class to you, ma'am.
Yes. And also, Riker was acting really, really strange. So I was thinking that he was Thomas and not Riker, and somehow Thomas intercepted it. And he had to come up with an excuse of, oh, no, it's fine. I can just leave them behind.
What actually happened when you started yelling, "It's Tom," like at 4:30 in the morning, and I had to find the remote and pause it and say, "What? It's Tom. Tom who? Tom Riker." It's like, no, it's not, and then back it up. Like, see what I'd missed. But for anyone who's keeping score at home, Veronica's calling Breen and Thomas Riker.
I'm sorry I'm not at home to keep score right now. So.
That's right.
That is awesome.
Let's see what happens.
That is so funny. Hey, did y'all notice the name of the planet Rafi was on?
Yes.
Metalis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Metalis, as in
Right.
Terry Metalis, as in
Yeah.
the writer of the episode.
I think
kinda
that's a whole
obvious.
over. Yeah, I think that planet was named after him when he was working on Enterprise. He was like Brandon Braga's assistant or something, and they named a planet after him. So
Oh,
if there was a planet named after me, and I was writing a Star Trek episode, that planet would for sure be in it. That's all I'm saying.
And it wouldn't be name of the victim of Gary Mitchell and Where No Man Have Gone Before at all either, would it?
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the episode was fun. It was a bit goofy. It was very heavy on fan references. Rachel Garrett made it in there somehow. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
the statue.
yeah, you could pile on the fan references, but they're trying to win fan goodwill back from the fans who didn't care for the first 2 seasons. You know,
I feel like it's too little too late. Like the way that Lower Decks loaded in the fan references, everyone was like, hey, this is so cool. But the way that Enterprise loaded in the fan references, it seems like they were shoving it in your face rather than, haha, look at this thing in the background.
Well, that's a good point, because Enterprise was, the ratings plummeted over the first 3 seasons, and then they tried adding Star Trek back in the title. They tried a story arc, and then ultimately they tried to just cramming in as many fan references in season 4 as possible, and it didn't succeed in saving the ratings. So, that's a
good point.
Yeah,
that's a very good point, and that's something when we have our discussion with the Sweatmans about Enterprise. Charles, you actually hit on something. I actually like season 4 of Enterprise the least of the 4. Even though it is admittedly the best produced, because it's too much fan service for me. I'd rather Enterprise fail at telling new stories like the Xindi arc than succeed or fail at giving me the augments and Orion women and all that kind of stuff. But that's a whole other story. And it's funny what y'all are saying, because as much as I did notice the fan callbacks in tonight's show, it's weird. It didn't bother me as much as some fan callbacks in other shows. And I'm always amazed at how subjective our feelings are about things. Like, if they do a fan callback in the Abrams first movies, I'm like, this thing sucks. I hate it. And then when they do it here, sometimes I'm like, oh, it sucks if it's Discovery. Or they're like, oh, okay, I can kind of deal with this. It's just weird. Sometimes it's the context. Sometimes it's the characters that you like. I was able to forgive a lot of it today. There was one real reference I thought was really funny when Rafi was looking for, like you were talking about, she was looking for what might be going on, and she asked for she asked 2 things. She asked for some important events that were taking place, and it was Empire Union Day, Frontier Day, and the Gratitude Festival. And then she was she was asking for the definition of Red Lady. I thought it was freaking awesome that one of the definitions of Red Lady was a Tal Shiar operative who had just been murdered by her father. And the computer just threw that out there, like, holy crap.
Like 207 days ago, this happened. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And Raffi didn't seem to think that was important.
Right.
It reminds me of Garak in the Obsidian Order, where his own father, spoilers, well, I don't want to do too many spoilers. Let's say somebody was talking about he should have killed Garak. And it's just kind of amazing that people in these organizations kill their own kids. You'd like to think that doesn't happen in Section 31 would probably do it. So I'm not going to say anything about that. I thought that was a cool reference to how evil the Tal Shiar can be, which is another reason why I take Laris with me if I'm going on a mission like this.
I would totally bring Laris.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, we've got a few minutes left. We've about 7 minutes out from the end of the hour. Any other thoughts? What are we overlooking? What did we miss? What is anything else anybody wants to get off their chest?
I got one. We haven't discussed the terrorist attack.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Go ahead.
I love, they have to do a new way to show a terrorist attack, and they did a very creative new way to show a terrorist attack in that scene.
Yeah.
It was like they opened a wormhole under it and
spit it back out
other side.
Yeah, it's like a portal weapon.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Or like a quantum tunneling weapon, maybe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
there you go.
Right, well,
yeah.
They mentioned that.
What was it that they stole from the Daystrom Institute?
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
There you go. That's actually the plot. I was talking about a video game.
I thought that was impressive looking. I thought that was an impressive looking thing they did there. I've seen some things like I've watched the one of the new He-Man cartoons. It's the CGI one on Netflix, and the sorceress in there, Matt, does that. When people attack her, the beams go into her wings, and then they come out the other wing, go and are directed right back at the person. So they go into some space and come back out. And so when they did that with that thing, where they took that entire complex and transported it or whatever out, and then it came back. And then also, I love the effect that it looked like a hole in the air. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah.
And I'm anxious to see how this ties in with Beverly's mission. Obviously, they're going to come together some way or how, but we don't know how yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing Picard embracing so many of the tropes of Star Trek movies. I mean, they're deliberately evoking all the Star Trek movie series, but in a lot of cases, things that Lower Decks parodied in Rise of Invicta, the big evil ship and the big evil people and the the weird lighting and all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was it's interesting to see that played straight after seeing Lower Decks sort of taking the piss out of it.
Oh yeah,
Right.
And for that matter, the ships, the very end scene, the ship that appeared, speculation on that.
Yeah.
My first thought was Romulans, just because of the way it was like pointed forward, like it was a giant claw.
Mm-hmm. To me, it almost looked like it was going in like to grab it and pull things, but I know it wasn't.
Maybe.
It reminded me of Shinzon's ship in Nemesis.
Yeah, or
Yes.
Nero's.
Yes,
Or
Nero's,
Nero's, right?
Yeah, it's their generic evil ship, but
But it almost looked like the Enterprise D at the bottom of it, with the front of it and the little oval shape. It almost felt like it was deliberately meant to look like the Enterprise D. Maybe I'm imagining something there.
Maybe it is.
No, maybe there's
No one's
kind of
convinced.
xenomorphs.
No.
Like,
but there is like an oval shape at the bottom
Right.
of it in the front, just like the Enterprise D.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got Breen, Thomas Riker, and Enterprise D to watch out for this season.
All wrong. Every one of those is wrong.
I am beyond
Everything you just said is wrong.
I am beyond curious to see Seven's story now, because right or wrong, she committed an absolutely court-martial offense by literally stealing it, taking a ship, not telling her captain, who, like you guys said, slept through a whole freaking journey across a different part of the galaxy. And also, I do not understand protocol. If a ship course would change, you'd think the captain would have been notified. But what she did was a court-martial offense. So I really wonder how she's going to get out of this. Because Shaw doesn't seem like, because in most Star Trek things, people go, ah, ha, 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 you did it for the right reason, you scamp, I'm going to let you go. Shaw doesn't seem to be that type.
Nope.
Well, he's going to die. So, I mean, the clock's ticking on that guy.
Oh, in that case, what Elaine says is Seven takes over as captain and this crew cheers.
We had a comment from Dan Leckie who said, "Hi, guys." Hi, Dan.
Hey, Dan.
Yep. Welcome
Dan.
back. Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I thought it was fun. I mean, a big part of Star Trek for me is that I like the characters. So if I'm enjoying the characters, I have an easier time when the plot doesn't make a lot of sense. I could watch Kirk and Spock or Picard and Riker in a silly adventure.
Right.
And I'm okay because I'm having a good time. And I like that camaraderie was there. And I like that they were having a good time on their adventure. They weren't miserable the whole time. They even made a joke out of the fact that they were enjoying themselves,
Yes.
that because these things tend to be pretty dour in the new live action Star Trek shows often. So, I'm excited to see what happens next. And, the silliness of this episode isn't going to ruin it for me. I sort of went in with the expectation, though, that this is more stylistically growing out of the movies than the Next Gen series. That seemed clear to me from just the trailers and the promotional images.
Right.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any final thoughts about the episode before we close it up?
I have two random observations.
Okay.
The first is when Raffi asked for more money, and then she was sent the money from her handler, who was totally Worf, by the way. We heard a cash register sound effect, which tells me that Venmo is still being used in the 25th century.
Okay.
And the other thing is when Picard and Riker were piped aboard the Titan, we saw the crew person who did it holding the pipe, which was electronic in some way. It had lights on it, which I hated that. I mean, we've seen intentional anachronisms in the past, for the sake of tradition or ceremony, like the bell that was used in Kirk's court-martial all the way back in the original series. So I just wish that had been a regular bosun's pipe, because what purpose could be served by the electronics anyway?
Right.
Anyway, since the person apparently still has to blow through it, what purpose could be served by whatever electronics are built into that thing?
Maybe they didn't have to blow through it. Maybe it was just for show.
Well, in that case, you could just get the ship's computer to make that sound.
That's true.
It just
That's
bugs
But
true.
me.
it's for show, and a
It just-
computer can't be a show. Oh, I guess a computer can be a show. But
What?
But
Okay.
If it's for
it's
for
more
show,
fun.
then that's all the more reason why they would just use a traditional bosun's pipe that you would see
That's true. Yeah.
on any naval ship today.
Yeah. In the Savage Curtain, they had a traditional one, and then in Star Trek 6, they had the electronic one. So I don't know. Maybe it's like an antique electronic one. It's been around so long. I don't. It's like in Lower Decks when they put buttons on the potted plants. I don't know what they're for. There's a space here. Okay. Anybody else? We had a final comment from the audience from Dan Leckie saying, "So much is not as it seems."
True.
All right. Well, all right. This has been fun. Thank you guys very much for joining us. This has been great.
Yes.
Vandy Beth, where can people find more of you?
I do stand up here in the Atlanta area, but most saliently tonight, I have begun my own podcast. It is called Jettison Pod.
Woo woo.
It's about comedy in science fiction.
Mhm.
So it's not a Star Trek podcast, but we will often discuss Star Trek, as in the first 2 episodes. The first episode was with the absent Alan, and we talked about the 5 funniest episodes in the Star Trek franchise. And in our second episode, we talked about the season premiere of the latest season of Lower Decks. And in the upcoming 3rd episode, Charles was my guest, and we talked about the season premiere of She-Hulk. So
Yeah.
we're having a lot of fun with it, and I encourage everybody to listen.
Absolutely. And where can people find that?
At any place that you find podcasts. It is a Libsyn podcast, and the title again is Jettison Pod.
Which is a great name for a podcast. I can't believe that wasn't taken.
I can't either.
All right, Matt, where can people find more of you?
The usual places: Facebook, Twitter. I comment a lot on Earth Station Trek. Every now and then we post some things. Eventually, we might be doing a season 2 of original series countdown once we watch
Awesome.
it.
Awesome. I look forward to seeing what everyone gives you a hard time about this time.
That's the best part.
Right. And how about you, Elaine?
You can find me on Twitter at Monkeying Around and on Facebook at Monkeying Around, which is the podcast I'm on. And I'm also on Twitter and Facebook with my personal name too. So, yeah.
Okay. And how about you, Keith?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups.
And how about us, Veronica?
Felton30.com.
And?
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys, which I only just noticed Matt is wearing our t-shirt. An hour in, and I just noticed it.
Well, that check.
It's eye-catching.
That check that Chuck sent me a couple of weeks ago has been going very far, as you can see.
All right. Do you have a closing for us this week?
Who, me?
Make it so.
Hey, great job.
There you go.
All right. Bye, everybody.